Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Inside the Mirror podcast. I'm your host, Kyle David, as always. Back for round 3. Papa Crabtree, Pastor Crabtree, Jeff Crabtree, Jeff El Jefe. I could call him Pops. You can call him whatever you want. Somewhere along those lists of names. Don't venture out too far. Anyways, round 3 with my father. We decided that a good way to finish up 2020 was to get wise words from the wisest man. So, Dad, somehow you got chosen.
Hey, that's good. Well, hello, son, Kyle David, K David, host, all those good things. Glad to be on with you.
Happy to have you.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's get into it. 2020. What in the heck? What was this? What happened? we weren't ready.
Yeah, if I could figure a lot out and put it, condense it, and write a book, I'd be wealthy.
Right.
Very, very difficult year, very challenging year for anybody and everybody. I think the one thing that it's drawn together is that we've all been through a crisis or all in a crisis where oftentimes in life you find somebody else, a friend, family member, or even yourself going through a hard time, but not everybody else is. And so it's created a global awareness, a global challenge, a global heaviness. So the negative is that obviously it's created fear, confusion, whether it be the COVID issue, the election, the cultural chaos that I call about, the uncertainties that obviously are in our lives right now. All of those things have come to bear upon us. The good part, I think, is it's causing us to reevaluate life and priorities and what's life about, and finding the tools to help us navigate the hard times. So life is there's always some challenges, but then there's some really good, fun, positive opportunities to grow and learn.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And I think and I don't know how many people agree with this, but I would think more people in 2020 now agree with this statement, is that it takes tough situations and tough times to really get people to the next level in life, in my opinion, from my experience, from using drugs to, whatever it is. It took those negative experiences for me to learn the most. You learn the most in tough times. That's what I'm trying to say. You learn the most through struggle. So 2020, if anything, was an opportunity for people to learn how to become better.
I totally agree with you. And I think you bring up the whole idea of perspective. How do you have the right perspective when challenges and difficulties and pandemics come? If you have the wrong perspective going in, you probably are going to get overtaken. If you can have the right perspective, and you just mentioned it, we need the hard times to grow. It, as you know, as a weightlifter, and I experienced that and lifted some weights in the past. It's that resistance, it's that pain, it's the tearing down of the muscle that then in the healing process creates the strength and the buildup of the muscle. But as human beings, it's natural for us to want to kind of pivot and control our lives to avoid any problem, any challenge. And obviously 2020 has said you can't avoid that. So if people can gain the right perspective and say, hey, there's a negative, there's a challenge, it's confusing, but I'm going to use this as an opportunity to let that resistance, that struggle elevate me and catapult me to a new level in my life. And that can be really, really positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that analogy. I use it a lot. I think that's great. When you, again, like you said, when you lift weights, when you try to build muscle, you must first tear the muscle, right? And it hurts. It hurts. The idea of tearing your muscles is not a comfortable feeling. It hurts to tear your muscles, but if you want them to grow, you must tear them. There's no other way to grow them other than ripping them apart so they can build back stronger. And another thing that I thought about when you said perspective, and how do you deal with tough times when they come, and how do you have a right perspective when the ship of struggle shows up on shore? I think sometimes it just takes practice, right? If you haven't dealt with a lot of tough things in your life, and I'm not knocking anybody, if you haven't dealt with a lot of tough things in your life, 2020 might have been your first real tough time. It's practice. Don't beat yourself up. To encourage people to be positive. Look, having the right perspective in life, no one has it perfectly figured out, but some of us have practice at it. I've practiced gratitude and I've practiced shifting my perspective over years. So when 2020 hit, and I'm not saying I handled it perfectly well, I had some huge bumps this year, but I had practice, and so I knew I had those tools in my tool bag, if that makes sense, that I got to pull out my perspective, right? I practice, I know how to use this weapon or whatever you want to call it, this tool, and now I have to execute and use that because I had practice using it, right? What do you think about that? That the just
Yeah.
life build up of practice over time to create a better perspective.
Yeah, my response would be small steps
Mm,
in the whole practice is that it's kind of like changing some of your habits. You got to take it slow, and you got to make it consistent. Here's another point that I think when we talk about 2020 and what you just talked about, is that we really need others. And I think 2020 has said that our independent lifestyles, I'm isolated, I'm alone, I'll do it by myself, it doesn't work because, like you said, how do you make those small steps? What are they? How do you stay consistent on it? And by being what, almost 6 years clean and sober, you had to take some small steps. You had to take some big steps, but you had to take some small steps, and people had to help you know what those small steps were, and then to walk with you through that process. And I think people are so lonely today and alone. And so when we say to them, hey, you need to, make some small steps, or you need to practice, or you got to create habits, they kind of go, I don't know what, and I don't know how. And so I think those of us that have had some practice and have grown through hard times, we need to be able to reach around to friends, neighbors, coworkers, and reach out and begin to engage and build bridges so that we can help them with those small steps and that
mhm,
practice and the changing of some habits. Does that make
mhm.
sense? That
100%.
I think the isolation, the independence of the Western culture is being challenged right now. We need other people. We need each other.
Mhm.
And another way to point it, I heard this early in COVID, is people need to leave the back porch and go to the front step.
Mhm.
Is that people like to be on the back deck, hanging out, which is very isolated, alone. I'm going to do it myself. But you go to the front porch or the front step, and says, "Hey, I'm available."
Yeah. And there's people walking by, you're putting yourself in a position to interact with other humans.
Yeah, and so my assumption is there's going to be people who on watching the podcast who are privately struggling, spiraling, lonely, confused. And so we want them to know that, we want to try to reach out to them. But if we don't know them, or they don't reveal that, we can't help them. But I assume you're going to have quite a few people on here, Kyle, that we want to help. You want to help. I want to help. There's a lot of other people want to help. So if they feel down, desperate, confused, dark, we want to build a bridge. We want to help you. We want to walk alongside you.
Mhm. And then I just want to say to anybody that is listening that is feeling that way, that's, feeling lonely or isolated or depressed or anxiety, anxious, right? All these feelings we've probably all felt them in some capacity in 2020. But just to empathize with those people, we've been there. You, Dad, and me as well have experienced these things. So we're not speaking from some high horse. We're not talking down to anybody. We're saying, look, we get it, right? Even a few years ago, I was in a dark place. I was isolated. I've struggled with isolation a lot. Just wanting to do it on my own, not trusting people. So I get it. So to anybody listening, if you're struggling with any of those things, I get it. Been there, I get it. And like my dad was just saying, I think the thing is you just have to make yourself visible to others. You don't have to do anything and go, join a group and really do something that's uncomfortable for you. It's going to be a little uncomfortable, but you just have to let people know, hey, or somebody know, hey, yeah, I could use a little bit of help. It does, again, you don't have to reach out to the entire globe. You don't have to start a Facebook page and spill your soul and vulnerability. You just got to let one or two people know that can help, right?
Yeah, and I think you did a good job on one of your previous podcasts. And you said, okay, just just take a second and text some people. And you know what? We're not saying anything that you and I haven't done together this year.
Mhm.
I've had my ups and downs. Again, nobody has escaped 2020. We've all had to let our lives be uprooted and changed by COVID, cultural clash and chaos. So you and I did that. Hey, and I know we're father and son and we're friends, um, but that's the same reality as we're trying to practice it. Hey, how you doing? Just checking in. What's going on? And again, we built trust levels of confidentiality.
Mhm.
So I can say, you know what, I'm really struggling. I'm really struggling in this area, and you can help me, or vice versa. So all we're just trying to do is spread the reality that there are people who care and can help, because 2020 has been challenging, but we want to make sure that we jump into 2021 as healthy and with as much good perspective as possible.
Mhm. So then, with that being said, moving into 2021, let's talk about what are some practical things that either we have learned in 2020 that we can develop and carry over into 2021, or if we haven't learned it, whatever, if there are things, just a few things that moving into 2021 will help us be better prepared the next time life throws something tough at us.
Yeah, the word comes to my mind is managing our expectations,
Mm.
which I'm not sure everybody thinks they do a little bit better job. I've been in the counseling world and coaching world for a long time. I'm getting older there, bud. And I found in my practice and my work that people think they do better on items than they maybe actually do. So I would say kind of managing expectations, and I say that because I think we're soon to be faced with and embrace that. Oh, 2021, Happy New Year! Pop open the bottles and let all the confetti go, and everything's going to be okay because
Mhm.
it's a new year. It's 2021.
Mhm.
And if our expectation is that, hey, everything, we're just going to flip the page on a year and everything is going to be great, we might find ourselves a bit disappointed. So I think what we do, and again, it's hard work, is to evaluate what did we learn in 2020, and how do we leave some of the negative in 2020, and how do we then bring some of the positive into 2021. And I
Right.
know that you have this focus. I think part of it is, are we individuals that are looking outside of ourselves to provide kindness? I think you have a mask with a message called "Be Kind," and
Yeah.
I wear that around, and it's fun.
Amazon.com.
Yeah, you can give all your info here, but I know when I wear mine, it's one is that I'm saying I'm representing that when I go out in public.
Mhm.
I'm wearing a Be Kind mask, and so that it's an awareness. Okay, it's a perspective. It's being ready for giving to other people, and so I'm wearing it saying, "Hey, I want to be kind to you," but then it's also giving them a message. Hey, you need to kind of be aware. You need to be kind because everybody's stressed, everybody's on edge, everybody's in a hurry, everybody's grumpy, people are down, and they get into this vortex of negativity. And so, how do we prepare for 2020 when we have the expectation that we can make a difference? Every
Mhm.
individual on that will watch this call or on the planet, if you want to, you can be a world changer. You can be an instrument for kindness and positivity. Yes, one person, every person on that will watch us, you can make a difference in 2021 by being kind.
Mhm. I think with that being said, in tough times, right, the people that rise to the top, and I don't mean success wise, I mean the people that stand out the most during tough times are the people that get outside of themselves and try to care for other people, right? Like, so anyone listening, you will remember the people in 2020 that were most impactful towards you. You'll remember the people that were there for you in 2020, the people that cared. You're probably not going to remember all the 5,000 people you fought with on Facebook about Trump and Biden and conspiracies, right? Or whatever your thing is. You want those people didn't impact you. You got in a skirmish with them. But the people that texted you, the people that were there for you, the people that said, "Hey, I'm available," the people that just checked on you, like you said, and like I've said a million times, the most practical thing you can do in this day and age of technology to check on people is so easy. Like if you, I say things, I know people don't like how I say things sometimes. You are selfish if you don't have 5 minutes to text a few people that you know and just say, hey, checking on you, want to know how you are, or hey, just hope you're having a good day. If you don't have 5 minutes to get on your phone, you have 5,000 minutes to check your Facebook and your Instagram and your Snapchat and everything else, which is all about you, which is fine. But if you don't have 5 minutes to set aside to text some people or to message some people and check in on them or just encourage them, you're selfish and you did not learn how to get outside yourself in 2020. But to keep that in a positive thing before we go too negative, again, you're going to remember those people that got outside themselves for a few minutes a day and helped. Those are the people that will be remembered because of how they treated you in 2020. But also, those are the people you should look to want to be like, right? Not to put ourselves on a pedestal, but just when you see somebody doing the right thing and it impacts you, it makes you want to be like them, right?
Yeah, I think that taps into, the spiritual reality that says, give and it shall be given to you.
Mm,
And again, as human beings and even as Westerners, we've kind of learned the opposite: give me, give me, give me, then I'll give back to you.
mm,
But that never works because when we get, we get selfish, and our
mm,
whole world becomes about us. So a part of the pivot, maybe from 2020 to 21 and getting prepared, is, hey, I'm gonna change my perspective. If a little evaluation is that I am going to give away what I want. Give and it shall be given to you. And I really think if every individual, every married couple, every family, and everybody, can you imagine in America? Can you imagine in the whole world if everybody pivoted to say, you know what, I need to give first and then I'll receive? It would totally change the whole perspective, not only of our lives, but the entire world. Because most of us, and I admit it too, you get greedy, you get selfish, you get down, you look at your own life and goals and dreams and bad things that have happened, and you get so self focused. So if we could pivot from 2020 to 2021, saying, you know what, I'm going to kind of understand this reality spiritually or just in the natural. Give and it shall be given to you. So
mm,
give it away. It'll come back. Try it. If somebody say, I don't believe in that, well, try it and do
mm,
it on a consistent basis. Even the
mm,
kindness. If you will
mm.
continue to give away kindness, it will come back to you.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think that would be the positive, Kyle, is that we need to kind of pivot to a new mentality for 2021 is I'm going to give away more than I get.
yeah,
And then you'll eventually get. But what do you think of that? I think that
yeah,
would change the whole world.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think,
One little thing.
yeah, I think there's two parts to that. There's the giving, there's the desire to actually want to help other people, right? Because there's always the argument of, well, you're just giving because you get something in return. That's great, like cool argument, but like no, when you actually want to help people and you give, yeah, there is a byproduct of reward of you feel good or opportunities come. But I think the simplest thing is that you feel good when you do the right thing. I've said this 1,000 times. When you do the right thing, you feel good. And if your desire is to actually help other people, and again, the argument is, well, part of your desire is to get something in return. That's fine. But if part of your desire is still to help other people, that's a good thing, right? So there's the giving and the receiving piece of doing things to help other people and changing how you are to better other people. When you do give, it's a double win, right? You win because you're doing the right thing. I guess it's a triple win. You win because you're doing the right thing. They win because they're receiving the gifts that you've given them, whether it's communication, love, whatever it is, encouragement. And then you win again on the back end because you feel good about it, and this person now trusts you, and you've now impacted a life. So that's a triple win. Correct myself.
Yeah, I like triple wins.
Yeah, being kind to people is a win-win-win.
Well, I really like very much that you have said, and we're talking about it's just practical things. It's small things that turn into big things. Sometimes
Mm,
people think, well, I can't do the huge things, the big things. I can't change. Well, yeah, little adjustments in your own personal life can
mm,
make a huge difference in your world. And if
mm,
we can get people to believe that, again, we're not selling anything. You and I are not selling anything here today. We
Hmm.
care desperately and deeply and passionately about people that are struggling, people
Hmm.
that are hurting, that 2020 has overwhelmed them. And you did a podcast on suicide. Well, you and I are on here to use all of our life experiences. Obviously, my years of counseling and coaching in my practice is to help people. You can make a difference. You don't be a victim. Don't be a victim. Maybe that's a good point too, from 2020 to 2021. If you felt like a victim by COVID or cultural issues or stuff on the internet or things in your private life, you don't have to be a victim. You can be a victor. You can be an overcomer. You can change, and it's these small things. And one of the things, like you said, is kindness. That's an
Hmm.
external thing. The other things you and I've talked is about, and really an internal thing that leads to external things, is learning to be grateful.
Hmm.
But that's some inner work.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna go inside and take a
Hmm.
look at the perspective of my life. Uh, I'll use a quick little illustration. I was dabbling with a particular stock in the stock market recently,
Oh
and I
gosh.
actually made a pretty significant amount of money.
Hmm.
But I sold out, and then I watched it go sky high after that, and so I began focusing on all the money that I could have had if I wouldn't have sold out. And then I realized that some internal work is I realized I'm looking at the negative, and if I continue to look at the negative, it will get me down. How about I turn and look at I did make some money, and so is that mental
Yeah.
pivot. And I think everybody needs to be able to have some mental pivots, so they're not victims, and they're victors or overcomers. Now that doesn't
Hmm.
mean that people are, in the mental health field that are experiencing PTSD and really having hard times. We care about you. So you say, well, I can't do that. I feel overwhelmed right now. Well, we want to come alongside. There's somebody around your world in your life. If you'll be willing to reach out to, they'll be able to help you. So it's kind of a both
Hmm.
and.
Yeah. No, I think that's great that you said that. I understand the feeling of isolation and aloneness, and no one understands and no one gets it. But someone told me this when I was in my dark days, is that you have to do something. You
Right.
don't have to fix yourself, but someone told me there is someone that you can find that cares. You may not even know them. You might have to go find someone, just one person, because if you're isolated, all you need is one person to listen and be there for you, that can get you on the right path. But you have to do the work. You have to do the work to find somebody that will listen to you, right? And because again, I understand this, I'm very empathetic to it. Hear me again, I'm very empathetic to being lonely and isolated. But the excuse that, well, I don't have any friends, I don't have anybody to talk to, I don't have anybody that cares about me, you have to do the work of finding that person. If you're waiting for someone to come knock on your door and hug you while you cry, they're not coming. I'm sorry, and that, it is what it is. If you do feel, I have nobody, I don't have any friends, I'm so alone, and I don't know what to do, you have to find somebody, right? And I know, well, COVID, how do I find somebody? Look, we're the most interconnected we've ever been through the internet. There are forums, there are message boards, there are Facebook pages for mental health. If you want it, if you actually want to get out of it, because there's the thing too, and I can speak on that for personal experience. Some
Right.
people don't want to be unstuck or unisolated. They've become comfortable in that, as weird as that sounds. So, to those of you who are in that situation, you have to evaluate, do you really want to get better? Do you want to be unisolated? Do you actually want to not be lonely? Or are you comfortable in that? And that's a question you have to answer for yourself. And then if you decide, no, I do want to get out of this, you have to find someone or somewhere where you can let people know, I am not well.
Yeah, again, you've been through the whole addiction process, and I obviously, in my practice, have helped a lot of people. The fear of changing has to overwhelm a person, is that they're afraid not to change rather than I'm afraid to change, right? You had to
Mm-hmm.
get to the place that your reality had to become so uncomfortable that you had to face the fear of change rather than the fear of not changing. Because the fear of not changing was that you wouldn't be alive today. So we're all motivated by fears in positive or negative ways. I hope that makes sense.
Mhm,
Is that you had to get so afraid that of what your current situation was that you were willing to face the fear of change,
mhm.
right?
Right. And something I wanted to say about what you were saying is, and I totally get it, that people have felt the victim in 2020. Some of us, I felt the victim in 2020 in certain ways, the victim of a poor government, of poor leaders, right? I was the actual victim of COVID, right? You know, you could get into that, right? Um, but really, with a lot of these things that 2020 has brought to light that people have felt victimized by, right? Whether it be the system, the government, leaders, police, whoever you, my message to those people, to myself and to most of us who have felt victimized by something in 2020, is you have to do something about it, right? It's okay to go, yeah, the government does suck at a lot of things. We do have a lot of poor leaders running this country. Man, it does suck when the police do something bad that kills or injures someone that doesn't deserve it. These are terrible things. But you have to acknowledge it. Again, it's problem solution. You have to acknowledge the problem, but then you must quickly turn to a solution. Because if you never turn to a solution, you just remain a victim. And when you remain a victim, you allow the problem to remain the problem. And so you being a victim is part of the problem, right? If you don't do anything to change the problem, you are part of the problem. Because if you see a problem and do nothing, you are part of that problem, right? So you and so I would say when you pivot to a solution, whatever your solution is, you also have to realize that change takes time. My generation and this generation wants to fix, they want police reform in 6 weeks. That's impossible. That's silly to even think. Great heart. I know people's hearts are usually in the right place, but you must realize this takes years and decades. We just had the civil rights movement in the 60s. African Americans just got the right to vote after fighting for decades. So you're not going to be able to fix everything in the next few weeks. You have to understand real change takes time. So you must be okay with there's going to still be a problem for a while, and you slowly start fixing parts of the problem. This is a lifelong process. If you really are passionate about changing something, you have to be willing to commit your life to it and the way you live to it. Not a couple weeks of it, not a few months of being mad on social media and being all for social justice. If you really care, you will dedicate your lifestyle to changing things, not just your behaviors for others that looks good through your phone. It's not a practical solution to anything.
Yeah, you're so right. It makes me think of in the last couple of weeks, I've had three different couples reach out to me to help them coach them because they were in crises.
Mm,
And so I usually lead people through a process, and like you're saying, we need to start learning that it's not just activities and events and reaction. The proaction is that we start getting some rhythms, new rhythms in our life. And so I ask these questions of these different couples. First of all, what do you want?
mm,
They were so much in the vortex of conflict and reacting and hurt and all the variety of things. And so I said, let's slow it down. What do you really want individually, and what do you really want as a couple? And if people can't identify that, then they're going to spiral. They're not
mhm,
going to have any kind of rhythm or any kind of process. And then once I had them unpack that, then I said, okay, now you know what you want. How are you going to get there? How are you going to
mm,
get what you want? Those sound like simple questions, but anybody that's on your podcast right now that maybe feels that life is overwhelming and COVID has been crazy and they're confused and they're anxious and they're depressed and they're heading into 2021 is when you go into 2021, what do you want? What do you
mm,
want 2021 to do for you and be? Where are you going to be a year from now? And then how are you going to get it? And if people don't understand where they're going or how they're going to get there, they're gonna be overwhelmed by COVID, by cultural clash, by things on the internet, by challenges that are coming in 2021. I don't know if that sounds too simplistic, but if you don't know what you want and you don't know how to get there, those things have to be answered. And usually, in that rhythm or in that process that you talk about, you're gonna find empowerment Don't look for
Mm,
empowerment to come outside of you. Empowerment is inside of you.
mm,
That makes sense? People are
mhm,
looking for outside empowerment. No, the empowerment is inside of you if you know how to activate it. What do you want in 2021? How are you going to get it? And as you start asking and answer those questions, it's that rhythm, that empowerment, that process that, gosh, I'm really hopeful. I'm really excited that most of your people on this podcast a year from now are going to look back and go, wow, I had one of the best years of my life.
mhm. I think we could, if people get nothing out else from this podcast, I think that could be it right there. I think that's the most profound, powerful thing that's been said, is that life is full of problems. Life is gonna be full of problems. Always has been, always will be. 2020 is full of problems. 2021 will be full of problems. But again, when you see a problem, you need to define a solution. And how do you define a solution? Well, what do you want the solution to be? How are you going to achieve that? And now that you have the what and the plan, now go execute. That's it. If you're looking for how do I handle 2021, there it is right there. When you run into a problem, define what you want to happen, how you want that to change, how are you going to change it, and go execute on that. And like you said, as that becomes a habit and you keep running into problems, you start knowing how to handle them and how to solve them. You're able to shift your perspective and go, okay, I see a problem, but I'm going to identify a solution using the questions of what do I want to happen? How do I want it to happen? Then I'm going to do it. Simple as that.
Yeah, and it is as simple as that, and it's as complex as that.
Right.
Because the reality is, our own human nature is we have our routines, we have our default systems, we have all the baggage from the past, and this is obviously not a counseling time, but the reality is we've got to let go of some stuff in 2020 to achieve something new in 2021. And again,
Yeah.
it's this time of the year that we need to evaluate. And that's not a practice that people do. They just live life. They don't have any margin in their schedule. They bop from one thing to another. They're exhausted. Da 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 da. This is a great time of the year to slow down, evaluate, and like you said, what do you want in 2021, and how are you going to get it? And then it's as simple as get going. At the same time, it's where I talk a lot about togetherness or others or community. Is again, we're very independent and isolated, and we're trying to do it on our own. Let people help you. There are a
Mhm.
lot of people out there. There's resources galore. We've never had more resources. We complain, but we've never had more resources at our disposal than right now, whether that's through the
Mhm.
internet or the neighbor or friendship or connectedness or community. And so, yeah, figure out what do you want, how you're going to get it, and then get going yourself, but then reach out to the resources that will help you and empower you.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and I want to talk about gratitude some too. I know you've touched on that. Uh, again, if you don't learn how to be grateful in the midst of tough times, you're going to repeat the same cycle over and over again. Something tough is going to happen. You're going to be like, oh, woe is me. Bad things always happen to me. And that's simply a perspective. That's not the truth, right? Like, and if you're able to, in the middle of a tough time, go, okay, right? COVID happened, right? Uh, Life has completely changed as we know it. We're all aware of the changes that have happened. But what do I still have, right? A lot of people still have their family, right? There's things that you can do and go, okay, what about if I compare this to the Spanish flu, right? Where actually millions of people died. Thankfully, and I'm not downplaying COVID, but millions of people in the US have not died, right? The death rate of COVID compared to the Spanish flu is not even comparable. Right there, we should be grateful for that, right? Or you can see it as, oh my gosh, almost 300,000 people have died, or at least 10 million people didn't die, right? And okay, that's touchy. Some people won't like that, but that's just how it is. That's just an example of being grateful, right? For me, oh my goodness, I thought 2020, I was going to go get a girlfriend and I was going to maybe meet my wife. I was ready to get out there and boom, everything shut down. And now 2020 is coming to an end. And I could go, man, this year really screwed up my plans. Now I'm going to be single for longer and this and that. Or I can go, well, you know what? Thank God I'm healthy. My family hasn't died from COVID. I still have clothes, I still have a car, the electricity works, right? Like then my
Yeah.
problem of not having a girlfriend sounds silly, right? Because the lights are on and the toilet still flushes.
Yeah. A couple things. Maybe your future wife is on the will watch the podcast. Uh, she'll
We'll
reach
see.
out if you're out there, and you're supposed to be Kyle's wife.
No,
Contact
no,
us.
no, no. We're
No, I
gonna
don't go. We don't want to go
elicit
down that trail. Yeah, and
elicit some
Kyle, I think
messages.
you're right. And again, those are small steps, but it's hard because as a human being, as a Westerner, our default isn't gratitude. That's just
Mhm,
not normal for us. It's not natural for us. Obviously, you have something tattooed on your arm
mhm,
that you can talk about here in a second. But it is about perspective. And here I'd call it this way. I'd look at it this way, Kyle. When someone gets an infection that's kind of sweeping through their body, they got fever, they got aches, whatever it is, it's working against the health, their personal health. Usually, when they get prescribed by a physician, it's a pill, maybe an antibiotic, and it's just a small pill, but it makes a huge difference. If you take it, it begins to counteract the infection. It fights the infection, might be your whole body, which is a pretty large deal. But this small little thing called a pill or an antibiotic, as you take that, it begins to counteract the larger problem. And I think what you've said is gratitude is like that, is that we live in a world, especially 2020, it's been an infection. COVID has been an infection. The cultural chaos has been an infection. The election has been an infection. The uncertainty of what's going on in the future, everybody being divided and angry, is an infection. So the small pill, the antibiotic, is gratitude. And people need to see that small things do make big changes. So I'm totally with you that if people can begin to do that, and you and I didn't go ahead and we know, so there wasn't a script here, but I will around Thanksgiving tell you that I started a little a journal of giving thanks. So
mhm,
every day I write down 10 different things that I'm grateful for. And
mhm,
it's amazing that it started to change me. Good morning, world. The beauty of the mountains, an opportunity to influence people, my family, provisions, grace to climb higher in my spiritual journey, um, uh, be able to train my body and getting out and doing. We had a church service. That my neighbors that just moved across the street. So that's a practical thing for me, is because I don't tend to be very grateful. You're
mhm,
much more grateful than I am, and so I have to train myself. We said small things, rhythms, new habits. So here's this book that's right next to my computer that every day I need to write down 10 things that I'm thankful for, I'm grateful
mhm,
for, and I believe that if I'll do this consistently, you don't have a diet and then you get off at 6 weeks. If I will do this consistently, 2021 is going to be a year that I'm going to be much more grateful than I would if I didn't have this tool in hand. Again,
mhm,
you didn't, and I didn't script that. We didn't know what we were going to talk about, but it is right here next to my computer. What if
mhm,
everybody did that? What if everybody
mhm,
in the world said, next to my computer, I've got a journal of giving thanks, and I have to register and identify 10 things every day. Maybe should
mhm,
be 50, but I'm getting started. So maybe that's a practical tool. The
mhm,
people that are on here that are down or discouraged or confused or unsure, or maybe feeling a bit inhibited about jumping into a new year, hey, get a journal out and write down 10 things you're thankful for every day. It'll
mhm,
change you. And once it
mhm,
changes you, it'll change all those around you.
mhm. I couldn't agree more. Again, I think you said I have more gratitude than you, but again, like you also said, it comes down to practice. I've been practicing this for almost 6 years of daily
Right.
trying to be thankful for things. And here's the thing, to anybody that's going through it right now, when I got out of rehab, when I first got clean and got out of rehab, my life sucked. It was worse than before. I was more depressed. I was more
Correct.
pissed. I was more angry. It didn't fix me, right? I was just clean of substances. So in the midst of me hating everything and being super angry and pissed and irritable, I had to daily be like, okay, I'm thankful I have a job. I'm thankful I have a car. I'm thankful I have a girlfriend at the time. I'm thankful for this. I'm thankful. So I had to tell myself I was thankful for things and I didn't feel thankful. So you're going to have to start somewhere. You're not going to write down 10 things and it's just going to glow off the page and envelop you and hug you. And the gratitude just soaks your body in warmth. Like, no, that's not how it works. You go, I'm grateful for the electricity, even though you don't feel grateful for it because you're used to it. I'm grateful for my car, even though you don't feel grateful for it because you drive it every day and you think it's a piece of junk, actually. But you need to tell yourself, and as you tell yourself over and over, it starts to become real. Like you said, it's small, small steps, because I do the same thing. I write down the most ridiculous things that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my toothbrush. I'm grateful for my toothpaste. I'm grateful for deodorant. One of the things I'm most grateful for is the sewer system, because
Correct.
I would hate to have to poop and pee all the time in my bathroom and have to remove it myself and not be able to just flush it away. And we take it for granted. I know it's silly and people are laughing because they're like, oh, he said poop. But like, you guys poop too. Would you
Well,
like to clean your own feces? Like, no, but you see what I'm saying?
well,
Once you
I know.
start going down to the simple, simple, simple things, I think those are the most impactful things, because you go, oh wow, yeah, I don't want to get rid of my own feces. Oh yeah, you're right. Like I won't know what I'd do if the water didn't turn on when I opened the faucet or the lights didn't turn on. You don't think about that till you write it down and say, man, I'm grateful for the little things.
Yeah, it's a practice and a habit.
Mm,
Would you? I know we probably don't have a whole lot of time left.
mm,
And I'm not the host, you are, but
mm.
let me pivot. Can you unpack what's on your arm?
Yeah.
Um, because that's not a cliche. That's not cheesy.
Right.
It's actually a pathway to a better life.
Right. Well,
You know
I
what I'm
mean,
talking about?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, this has changed my life. This has actually changed my life. I don't know how well people can see that, but you see the writing. But anyways, people have heard me say this before, but if you haven't, it's the Serenity Prayer. It says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Right?
Can
You
you say
can't.
that again a couple of times? I know that people need to be able to absorb that. Can you say that a couple more times?
Yes, doctor. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change. Give me the courage to change the things I can, and give me the wisdom to know the difference. So you have to, again, you have to accept. There's been so much pushback in 2020 against this, and I will never concede. You have to accept what you can't change, right? Like, there are some things you can't change. I know a lot of people are up in arms about climate change right now. You yourself aren't going to solve climate change. But so you have to accept you can't change it. But you have to have the courage to change the things you can. There are things you can do, right? If you're passionate about climate change, you can get a more climate conscious vehicle, right? You can be careful with where you spend your dollars and research companies that produce products. There are practical things you can do, but you have to have courage to do those things. It's not comfortable. It's not easy for you to maybe have to spend more money over here because it's more climate conscious, right? We're using that example. But you can't change the whole thing, but you can change some things. So you have to have the courage to change the things you can, which is, again, buy a different vehicle, use different sources of power. But you have to be wise and know the difference, right? You have to know that you yourself can't stop the earth from heating up. You have to accept that. But then you
Yeah.
must have the courage to go, but I can do something.
And would you read for me that first word?
God.
Yeah, Kyle. Again, I'm not the host, you are, but I am Dad.
Not anymore.
I love interacting with you.
Go
It's a lot
ahead,
of
doctor.
fun. You and I have one of the most unique and wonderful and joy-filled relationships. If you don't mind me pivoting as people head into 2021,
Mm,
um, I found that maybe people at the end of 2020 might be as open and receptive to spiritual topics, spiritual issues, a spiritual interest than maybe in my whole entire life and my 43-year career. Um, because I think we've learned that the things that we used to trust in, things we used to believe in, a lot of those have been challenged. A
Mhm.
lot of those have crumbled. A lot of those, we put the weight down on it, and it didn't work anymore.
Mhm.
I think for the whole world. And so I think we are in maybe a great reset. People are
Mhm.
calling that, and I think that's true. And so for every individual, I know in my personal life, and could speak for your own, is that when I've exhausted all of my ability, again, what's on your arm, and I come to a place of loneliness and brokenness and anxiety and confusion and, yes, even depression myself, where am I going to pivot? Where's the answer? Sometimes we look inside of ourselves that we can do it. Well, I think 2020 says there's a lot we can't do. So God, um, again, you know that I'm a Christian believer. Back in 1978, was a drug dependent, angry kid. You can relate to that. And I had an encounter with Jesus Christ, and He changed me. So anyway, I'd say that as people look ready to jump into 2021, is they may want to kind of reevaluate their spiritual lives, their spiritual journey, their spiritual interests. And I think that could be a positive component for them to have a tremendous year in 2021.
Mhm. Well, you're absolutely right. I think I'm never one to tell people what to believe because no one told me what to believe. You very much growing up, and I've told people this, is said, "Hey, figure it out for yourself. Don't listen to me." What if I'm wrong? And I think I commend you for that. I respect you for not forcing any religion on me, but saying, "Hey, figure it out. This is what I believe, and I'm going to teach it to you. But you got to figure out if you believe it's true." And that's how I try to approach spiritual things. Is look, I believe this, but you should figure out what you believe, right? Figure it out. Go down the rabbit holes of Christianity. Go down the rabbit holes of the other religions and see which one shapes up to be the one that you think is the truth. Explore, research. Uh, but this is something I would say is, again, and I said this in some format in a conversation or a podcast or something recently, is that look, the Bible, the Bible, right, which is the basis of Christianity and the belief in Jesus, the Bible is the most widely distributed book in the history of humankind. And the Bible claims to have the answers to the mysteries of the universe. It would be absolutely ignorant for you to say that you believe in something spiritual, whether it's energies, the universe, or whatever, and to not look into the book that says, and it is the most widely distributed book in history. So there's some weight to it. Billions of people think there's something good in there. And to claim that it has the answers to the mysteries of life, and you write it off because you think Christians are silly or they're just stupid Trump supporters, or sorry, but that's how people like to view Christianity in 2020. You have a skewed perception and you have a very immature opinion because you have done no research to actually see what that book those people believe in says. And if you really are questioning in 2020, man, I don't really know what I believe, right? We've all had, I think we can all agree to this, and maybe there's one of you that haven't felt this way, but I think we've all had a moment where we felt a little weird physically and went, hey,
The
cat
cat,
fight,
cat
cat
fight.
fight. Hey, that'll be interesting for the listeners. Anyways, before the cat fight, like I said, uh, we've all had a moment in 2020, probably. I can attest to it. You can attest to it, where you go, oh my gosh, my throat tickles. I probably have COVID. And then you go to, what if I die from this throat tickle? I have COVID and I'm going to die. Right.
Sure.
But again, that just being said, is that when you start thinking about death, we're a lot of people are young. We don't want to think about death till the end. Right. We'll figure it out later. But when you get hit with a global pandemic where people are dying and you're going, I don't know, what if I die? You start to be more open to talking about what happens after life. What is life? What is the purpose of life? Where did we come from? So to wrap all that up, bring that back home to what I was saying, is there's a book that says it can explain those things to you. And it's not a book written by your neighbor. It's a book that has been distributed to billions and billions and billions of people who live their life based on what that book says. So if you really want to go into the conversation of what is life, what happens after life, what is spirituality, you should probably look into the most widely distributed spiritual book in human history.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And
And
so,
let me say that just to wrap this up. Sorry to interrupt. Just look into it. I mean, if
and
someone told me today, hey, I have a book that will make you a millionaire, I'm at least gonna look into it, right?
well, let me pivot real briefly. I know we're coming close to time here. Would be, I agree with you. How do they do that? I would say
Mhm.
find a Bible and go into the middle of the Bible and look for the book of John
Mhm.
and start reading in John. If you start reading the Bible kind of like a novel, you won't get through. So the
Mhm.
practical point is pick up a Bible if they're interested and go to the book of John and start reading.
There you go. Practical steps. Well, I think we're down to 1 minute. You got a tight schedule, so we'll let you go. Uh, Thanks for coming on. Thanks for the advice and the wisdom. I think if anybody heard anything, there's several things, but I think to simplify it is when there's a problem, what do you want to be done about it? And how are you going to do it and go execute? And learn how to be grateful in life. You only get one. Don't live it feeling like you're the victim and there's nothing you can do. What do you have? Any last words?
No, just love you, appreciate you, I'm proud of you. You're making a difference in the world, and hopefully anybody on this podcast will gain something from it as we go into 2021. Love you, bud. I'm going to see you soon. Very proud of you.
Appreciate you. Well, as you head into 2020, 2021, everybody, we'll see you on the other side. This is the last podcast of 2020. Thanks for bearing with me. I'll be back next year. Until then, this has been another episode of Inside the Mirror podcast. See you next year.